Hello, and welcome to Jason Cavness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. Our guest today is Ali Schwanke. Ali, are you ready to be great today?
I sure am. Let's do this.
Ali is the CEO and Chief Marketing Strategist of SimpleStrat, a content marketing agency that helps B2B and SaaS companies break through the noise and get better results from their content marketing programs. She has 15 plus years of experience in marketing. As an entrepreneur, Ali says she's had her fair share of HR wins and challenges. Learn how she puts strategy first, whether that's recruiting new employees or generating results for clients, plus best practices for your content to stand out from the competition. Ali, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat about content marketing and all things content related.
So if we go any further, I got to publicly thank you, Ali. So about a month ago, I posted on LinkedIn that I needed some user design tests from our website. Not only Ali to become a tester, she also shared it on her social media. And I got, I think, up to 5 testers from Ali's post. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know I've been on that side of things where you got to find people that are real life testers. And so I was happy to share, and I'm glad people took you up on it.
Yes. So Ali, you were just recently named as host of HubSpot Hacks, correct?
Yeah, we launched that series. It's HubSpot tutorials, and I think we just hit 1,500 subscribers on YouTube recently. So it's growing strong.
So Ali, talk about you actually have 2 companies now, correct?
Yeah, I have an agency that we are a content marketing agency for B2B and SaaS companies. Again, back to that bio, helping them break through the noise with their contents and create content that performs. And then we've been working on a software platform for marketing strategy, and that's called Brand Plan. And we've been working on that for about the last year, and currently growing our wait list as we finish the product itself.
So you started the SimpleStrat before Brand Plan, correct?
I did. Yeah. SimpleStrat started about 4 years ago, and it came out of the name obviously has strategy short in it, but it came out of a need to want to get people back to that foundational aspect, and then really build off of that to create programs that don't just like answer the quick win side of things, but they get them long-term growth opportunities as well. So started that, and then found the opportunity to weave software into that, which is where Brand Plan came from.
So Ali, most people can't handle working 9 to 5 and even more can't handle one startup. You have basically 2 companies. Like, how are you doing this? Like, you're not sleeping, or what's going on here?
Yeah, if there's one question that I've gotten in my career, it's when do you sleep? And I think just I'm very type A. And as we record this, we are going through everyone's locked in their houses and can't leave. So if you listen to this further down the line, hopefully we're out in society and going to the parks and ball games again. But yesterday I joked that I'm going stir crazy, and it's only day like number 6. So yeah, I just have a lot of energy and always want to solve problems. I think that's kind of what it boils down to.
So is marketing your background?
Well, it's funny because I wanted to be a surgeon in college. And so I studied pre-med, and I do love solving problems. And I think really great marketers solve problems, and they look at the whole world as a problem, not like a campaign to be launched, right? And so when I graduated college, I went back and studied a lot more about photography and design, and I really got into like the visual side of communications. And then once I went back and studied more about business, it just kind of like all came together in this wonderful like scientific experiment blends with creativity, and that's really where I fell in love with that. And then kind of opportunities just came because I think I was good at it. And obviously here I am today. So
can you define marketing for us?
Well, it's funny. I wrote an email that's going to go out tomorrow to all of our like business owner people on our contact list. But I define marketing as creating value for your customers that ultimately ends in a relationship. And today we see that as obviously like a buying experience. But even now, like Jason, you're building an audience, creating value, and one could say that's marketing. Even if you don't have a Facebook page, if you promote it in some way and create value, that's marketing.
So, Ali, on your LinkedIn, you did I think a post about a time how you hired your first employee. Can you talk about that a little bit? I thought that was a really great story. Can you talk about a little bit how he's growing in your company?
Yeah. So 4 years ago, a little more than like 4 years and a couple months, I had decided to move away from, I was doing solo consulting, like CMO for hire kind of thing. So I go into a company, help them figure out their strategy, help them build their team, and then somewhat move out. And I decided that I wanted to build an agency because I kept having to kind of play this like master recruiter all the time, and that really wasn't my strength. So I put up a posting. I launched Simple Strat, the company, put up my first job posting for a marketing assistant, and I had some good applicants, but I'd hired people in previous jobs, but I'd never actually like shelled over my own money to hire someone that I'm now paying their taxes, paying for their desk, and paying for, like, it's a big first step if anybody's never had an employee. And so I interviewed this guy, and he was one of those like dream employee kind of people that I couldn't believe he would apply to this, like what felt like I was kind of playing house still at that point, like, ooh, I have a business and now I'm going to hire an employee. But he applied, and he was a great interview. I interviewed him at Starbucks, and I remember calling him and just freaking out that he was going to say no because it was too much of a risk. And he didn't. He said yes, and we negotiated on his starting salary. And 4 years later, he's like one of the best people, like just an awesome leader on our team. And he has grown tremendously. And I can't imagine, the company without him.
Yeah, I found it interesting. Like you were basically scared to death that he's going to tell you no. Like you're like, this guy's going to tell me no, what I'm going to do. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I feel like the further you get along in your entrepreneurial career, you build up this like this thick skin of you kind of expect people to say no instead of expecting them to say yes. And I did. I in that post I wrote that I was actually driving when he called me back, and I had to pull over because I was afraid that if he told me no, that I was like, okay, I don't know what to do now. But obviously he said yes, and so when he said yes, I almost had more silence on the phone because I was surprised than I was.
Like you said yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, are you sure? But yeah, obviously it's been a good road for him as well. So,
Ali, a lot of people like talk about sales as important, always be closing, but I'm a firm believer. You should also ABR always be recruiting, because you always got to build a talent for your bench, and bring people on. Can you talk about how you've done that for your company?
Yeah, I think that that advice, Jason, I wholeheartedly believe that myself. I think that when I was on the employee end, I remember one company that I got asked to join their team after I'd left a previous job. And this was kind of the thing that drove it home for me. Is this person had said, yeah, we've been watching you for a while and we wanted to recruit you, but we were afraid that they were a client of that company. And they were like, we were afraid that we were going to offend them if we actually tried to recruit you. And so what it told me as an owner is people are looking and watching your performance long before you're ready to make a move as an employee. And as an employer, I need to let people know that I'm not like creepily watching them, but like, hey, I think you have a lot of talent. I'd love for you to join my team someday. And so now I think as an owner, I've been more forthright in saying that. Like I've been known to say to people like, hey, I really think you're going to work for me someday. And they're like, okay, that sounds great. But I want to be inspirational and keep them informed as to what we're doing so that when the time is right, it's not this, let me tell you about my company. It's more about what's it going to take for us to make this work?
Yeah, I do the same thing. Yeah, you can come work for me one day, I do that all the time. So next, let's talk about content. So I think there's two things I thought out there. One is, don't push a lot of content out, because you put out too much content is going to, water down your brand. No one wants to read all that stuff. And then you'll have people like Gary Vaynerchuk, like, more content, more content, more content. What's your theory on that?
Yeah. So it's funny because I do appreciate a lot of the things that Gary Vee puts out. I think the challenge, if you're going from someone who's not created a lot of content to what Gary posts every day, several times a day, people often don't peel back the external perspective and see he's got a team that's producing all of that for him. Plus, like if he gets 4% engagement on a 5 million person following, it looks like he's got just like crazy amounts of followers. But like proportionally, he probably gets as much engagement as I do on my Twitter account, and I only have about 3,000 followers, right? So I think content these days, you can definitely produce too much, but usually what happens is people try to produce more because they think it's about the frequency and amount that they push out. And what I tell people, it's usually less about, like, frequency is important, but what's more important is showing up consistently. So if I say, Jason, every 2 weeks, I'm going to send you an email, I need to send an email every 2 weeks. if I'm going to post on Facebook daily, I need to post on Facebook daily. Because when you stop or when you alter that behavior, you suddenly open up the door to people trying to figure out what's going on with you. Oh, he hasn't sent an email in 2 weeks, but he said every 2 weeks. Is he okay? Is he still in business? And people do make up their own stories when you don't follow through on what you tell them. I also see a lot of people, like, there's a lot of COVID-19 emails going out right now, and there's a lot of them that I swear I could just delete the name of the company and copy and paste them across every single brand, because they're all saying the same stupid thing. It's important that we educate our customers, but for God's sakes, please give me a personal approach to how you're handling the situation, not just the same corporate, jargon that everyone else is using. So I think it goes down to like creativity, consistency of showing up, and then having like, you have to have something worth saying. And if you don't, you probably should re-examine your positioning, like, period. And that's a hard thing to swallow.
So this is my pet peeve about the other COVID-19 stuff going on. Like, I know there's companies out there who are saying, we have this offer, free remote coaching, free remote this, but you're a remote company. Like, I don't get it. Like, are you kidding right now? Like, this is what you do anyway. Like, I don't know. That's a pet peeve of mine,
Yeah, I think that we were just joking about content strategy internally. And I said, I don't think anybody in the tech industry wants to see another email about how to run a remote team. Now, what you might want to see is, can banks even go remote? Here's 5 roadblocks you're going to run into. Like, because a bank is used to being in a bank every single day. So they're going to have the article that you wrote about being remote when you are a virtual technology software development company is not the same value proposition that a bank needs to hear right now. So I think now is a very, very unique time to create that like really specific content for a specific industry that's going to be facing this COVID crisis in a very unique way. And that, again, that takes time, and people often like just want to shortcut their way through stuff. So,
or how about if you own a cleaning company, how do you do remote for cleaning companies? You still got to clean buildings, right? But how do you work through that? That'd be pretty valuable, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if people wanted to talk about like who's hiring right now, and I will tell you what, like, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of restaurants who are going to need to have extra workers if they continue to do carry out delivery, because people aren't going to want to go out into that environment. But how do you say that lightly in content? That's hard.
Yeah. And this is what I'm interested in. Like, once this all over with, right? All these companies, hey, all your workers come back and work 9 to 5, come do your hour ride one way and hour ride back home and so work the building. People are like, hey, hold on, wait a minute. We've proved we can work remotely, and you want us to come back, that's not going to work, so that's going to be an interesting dynamic, I think, coming up, I think.
Yeah, I think that the people that are creating content around what they think is going to happen as a result of the changes we're going through, I think that's interesting content. And I think that, there's going to be some of it that's wrong. But as we're on this podcast, one thing that I'm finding interesting is I've noticed that Jason, if you don't have an hour commute anymore every day, you might have listened to 2 podcasts that were hour long every day. And so now your commute is like, to your bedroom or to your office, and you got a 1 minute or 30-second commute. And so it might open the door to these like small 5 to 10 minute podcasts, snippets every day versus this once a week, 60 minutes. So how we consume content, I think, is changing. People are looking for interpretation of data, because I don't know how many cases of COVID there are. I can't figure out where they are, but if I can see it inside a visual, that's much different than a news article from the New York Times. So I think those are the things that are definitely impacting us from like a consumer perspective. And I know that's going to impact how B2B companies market as well.
So Ali, speaking of data, how important is analytics to marketing?
Yeah. So the one thing that I tell everybody about analytics is there's this myth that because everything is digital now, you can measure everything. You should know where every single dollar, is going and what it gets back to you. I still think it's a good thing to strive for. I still think my personal belief is you're never going to be able to track everything. And especially in light of some of the things that make it possible for us to track are things that consumers are pushing back and saying like, hey, don't track me. I don't want you to know that. And so we're fighting that with consumers, but you should at a very bare minimum know what your major sources of traffic to your website are. You should know what those audiences are doing on your website, what conversion actions they're taking, and you should know what is growing your main assets, like your email list, your social media, people getting, free resources. If you don't know the sources of traffic that are converting, you need to solve that at least, at a bare minimum.
Is Google Analytics still like the best one to use, or there's something better than that right now?
I would say there's tools that are better than that. They're more expensive. I would say Google Analytics are probably the tools that are still the most universal. And they're the ones that if you go looking for answers on how to do things, especially if you're really ramping up your content game, it's going to be the most easy to use in terms of like the amount of resources that are out there to help you do that.
Yeah, I saw where you took the Google Analytics Academy. I did the same thing. I'm going like it's just so much information, right? It's overwhelming because it's craziness how much stuff is on there.
Yeah, I think that what I run into with most people trying to learn like marketing at all, let alone analytics, it's like they go in wanting to learn the tool, and it's almost like getting a car, but not really learning how the rules of the road work. And so you're driving through parks and you're driving on sidewalks because you don't actually know what you're supposed to do with this car. And so I think with analytics, if you go into it saying, I need to find out these things, or this is my hypothesis, how do I track this information? If you go in with scenarios, then you can actually learn in that, like within that scenario. And then as your learning grows, you keep layering it on top, and then you eventually like understand the whole suite.
So Ali, I know there's like, you talk about different tools. I know those SEMrush, those Ahrefs, like there's literally dozens of tools out there that cost money. Anyone better than the other one? Any recommendations, or it just depends on individual preference?
Yeah, for content, one of the things that people struggle with content is, at least what I've noticed when I've gone in and helped people fix their strategy or align a new one, is they write content that's interesting to them. And what they don't actually do is write content based on the way people talk or the way they search. So SEMrush and Ahrefs actually gives you, they both give you data from the web relative to search queries. So you might say the question, Jason, how do I track visits to my website from social media? That might be the actual long form, like search query, or what we call long tail search that you would use. And a marketing company might think, I'm going to write a blog post called how to use blah, blah, blah filter inside Google Analytics to view search behavior relative to, again, like it's not language that anyone would use. And so Ahrefs and SEMrush can give you those actual ranking terms, and then they'll expose you to a lot of things like backlinks and how other content's performing. But in and of itself, I think there are free tools out there, like Ubersuggest is one. There was another keyword plugin that I think they just made free, so that probably doesn't apply. But you can get a 7-day trial of Ahrefs for $7, and SEMrush has an introductory thing for free. So I'd say if you're a content marketer and you're not using either of those tools, you're definitely missing a big opportunity to create content based on like an informed picture of what's out there on the internet and how it ranks.
Ali, so who are some marketing people that you follow that you agree with what they're doing?
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is in our office, we have 5 rooms, and each one is named after a famous marketer. And so I'm actually in the Gary V video studio. So we've got a Gary V studio. Ann Hanley with Marketing Profs, excellent content marketer, really good with copy. She's got a free, or I think a discounted course on copy going right now in light of what's going on. Ogilvy, anything from Ogilvy. They're a little bit higher as far as like big agency, but they put out some excellent content. Seth Godin, the father of marketing. I think I've read
not only the father, the granddaddy.
The granddaddy. I've read all of his books. I keep saying like I want to be known as like the female version of Seth Godin. And then Rand Fishkin, the founder of Moz, he was the person that really like inspired, I think, what I believe to be modern like video content marketing. They started their Whiteboard Fridays before anybody was doing like whiteboard videos online. And so I love what he's been doing, and follow all of those companies religiously. Yeah,
I used to follow his Whiteboard Fridays all the time. I really love those. And I love Seth Godin's like daily blogs. It's like not even a paragraph, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's an excellent example of, one, he's built an audience, but 2, you don't have to be verbose to be profound. And if you have established your own unique perspective and you stick with it, people come to consume content from you in short bits. And they, again, I said, if I can write 140 characters and get 5,000 shares on it, I feel like I've reached the pinnacle of influence at that point.
Yes. So Ali, back in 2019, you put a post on LinkedIn that says, people buy from people they trust. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that whole post was written around the concept. If you're in financial services, which there was a client of mine a while back that was in like heavily in that area, but it's called Center of Influence, or COI. And COI is sort of an old, I'll say old school because it's originated a long time ago, but technique where you identify certain people's that have influence in their communities or their networks, and you build relationships with them with the intention of actually getting referrals and passing referrals. Now, from a broader perspective, I think what I'm noticing in marketing is you're seeing sales development representatives who used to be known as just like pick up the phone and try and schedule the meetings. They're having to create as much awareness for their brand as they are for the company. So if you haven't read, it's called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount. Awesome book, but he's got a whole chapter in there about how to do social selling. And I would say that it's not even selling, it's social influencing. And so people want to buy from people, and nobody says, I love company XYZ because of the logo. They love the experience, which comes from the humans. And I think that's the future of content marketing. And obviously this podcast that you're hosting is key of that.
Ali, who's your target customer?
So on the Simple Strat side, our target customer there are CMOs and VPs of marketing inside of SaaS companies, SaaS technology, and B2B service companies. From Brand Plan, that platform is actually built so that any B2B company can load in their marketing strategy, load in the research that they found about their customers, all of their brand standards, brand guidelines, messaging, and then actually plan campaigns and share that with their whole team. So in that case, it's more about just B2B companies probably have at least 2 employees or 2 marketers or more. But we're building the wait list over there yet. So not actively acquiring customers yet.
And so do you focus on startups as well?
We do help startups with projects. Startups typically are a little bit more volatile when it comes to like doing what we would call like a partnership, like a content, like where we're actively helping them on a monthly basis, unless they're venture backed. And, in that case, they've usually got some targets they have to hit. So, but a lot of times startups, they need like, hey, what should we do here? So let's do a 30-day engagement where we help them figure XYZ out. And then they kind of go on their ways. So.
How is the startup community in Nebraska? Is there even one there, or how's that? Yeah.
So where I'm based in, we actually have a very, very active startup community, and in fact, our startup that is involved in this like giant picture that I just described, Brand Plan, just got one of the local grants that is awarded to startups. So we actually have some good support from the government here as far as like grants and funding and that kind of thing. It is definitely more difficult to raise money in the Midwest due to the little bit more conservative mindset. And the fact that, you can't throw a stone and hit a startup on every corner here, which is both good and bad. So, but I would say that, there's a good community of fellow supporters, and you can definitely reach out and build connections and resources here.
So Ali, next, can you talk about your journey, your entrepreneur journey? Like how do you even decide to become an entrepreneur, and like the pros and cons of what you've been doing so far?
Becoming an entrepreneur, I think, is one of those things you're born with. But for me, I didn't quite realize that till I was, past the point that everybody else thought that I should have been an entrepreneur before I actually made the move. Hindsight's always 20/20. I look back, and in high school, I had a cake decorating business. So I actually worked at the local Pizza Hut, and I would sell cakes to customers. And my boss actually thought it was fine. So I would tell them all about my thing, and then my friend and I would bring cakes in and actually have them in the back room, and then bring them out and sell them, which probably would not fly today. But we were doing that. I had a photography business. So I always had some sort of side hustle. And then ultimately I pitched an idea at a startup weekend, and it was this health and fitness app. It was actually a really good idea. We won the competition. We had a working application, and then encountered the problem that almost every startup goes through. And that was the people that felt the pain didn't want to pay for it. The people who would pay for it didn't feel the pain. So it was this like multi-sided realization that you got to follow the money. And if the money's not there, then you got to figure out, how it's going to get paid for. And ultimately, that's when I decided to just move into the consulting world, and then eventually, launched my own companies. And that was about 7-8 years ago. So.
Yeah, I remember reading something similar that there was a study that said most entrepreneurs, like when they were kids, either had lemonade stands or had a side hustle, or like they did something, So it's always been their blood system, so to speak.
Yeah, nobody in my family has ever owned a business. Nobody in my family has ever launched anything out of, out of thin air, I guess you could say. So I honestly didn't realize as a child that that was a thing. I went to school because that's what I thought you did. And college was wonderful. I learned a lot of things in college, but I learned everything that I know about business by working in business and working for very smart people and then working with very smart people. And to be honest, failing, a lot. So school of hard knocks, I think, as well.
That's one thing I think people don't realize when they start a company, how many times you're going to hear the word no over and over and over again, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen that 100 Days of Rejection experiment on like a TED Talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I go back to that often because I think back to that like comment that I made about that employee who I thought was going to say no. So many times in life we like build ourselves up to hear a no when in fact we should just ask because we might actually get a yes. So.
Yes. Ali, can you talk about why human resources is important?
Yeah. So human resources at our company, I still am our human resources officer, I guess you could say. We have we've employed some external help along the way with, things of legal aspects or, we worked with a recruiter for a while. But I think, the way I see human resources as a small team is definitely improving that experience. Like, what does the employee want to get out of this? Do they understand their role? How do we deal with all the logistics? Like we just deployed Gusto as a platform to manage like time off and payroll and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's about making sure that they get to where they want to go. It's a seamless experience, and then we get value out of that allows the business to grow.
Ali, what's your vision for your two companies? Like what's the long-term plan?
Yeah, the long-term plan is to so Simple Strat. We have a couple of other technologies that we've actually come up with over in that company, and we want to continue to provide value from a content perspective, and probably keep that team rather small as we continue to grow technology out of that. For Brand Plan, my vision is for every company to use this platform as a way to build, communicate, and visualize that strategy across the company. So you're using this in your yearly planning session, you're using it in your weekly marketing meetings, you're sharing it with the investors, and you're helping get your brain around this idea of marketing strategy and how it actually becomes real and built into tactics. So, I hope to be right up there one day with, the HubSpot and the Salesforces of the world, but obviously we have a long way to go.
Ali, I understand you have something for our listeners today.
I do. We have a whole page of resources on our website, which Jason, I understand you'll put in the show notes. We've got guides that range from, if you're considering a software like HubSpot, we've got a guide to help you through that. If you are looking to use video in your social strategy, we've got a guide for how to get started. We've got a marketing plan template. If like this whole COVID-19 has you going back to the drawing board, you can go ahead and download that. But we've got a whole page with that, and again, we'll make that available to you, Jason.
Can you share social media for both yourself and your company so people can reach out to you?
For sure. Yeah. So my social media, I tend to be pretty active across multiple platforms, but you can find me just my handle on every platform is Ali Schwanke, which is ALISCHWANKE. And my company, Simple Strats, is Simple Strat on all platforms, SIMPLE STRAT. And except for Twitter, because somebody squatted on our name there, and we are Simple Strat Chat over on Twitter.
For listeners, we'll have the links to her gifts and her social media in the show notes. And you can find the show notes at www.cabinetshrblog.com. And also be sure to share the Jason Cabinets experience with everyone. So, Ali, next question. How do you disqualify someone? What's your process for that? Because everyone is not a good customer, right? How do you go about disqualifying someone?
Yeah, they aren't. You're right. Like the thing that I heard in sales, years ago that still holds true is sales. Your process needs to be disqualified as quickly and as hard as you can. And disqualification for us would be if they think marketing is going to be the answer to all of their sales problems. That's a bad sign. Marketing is not typically in a B2B company going to be the answer to all your sales problems. If they are looking for a silver bullet, there is no silver bullets. There might be some quick wins, but there's definitely not we're going to swoop in and save all the things for you. And then a third thing is, misunderstanding of time or money. So if the results are we need this in 30 days, and on average for every company we've ever worked for, it's taken 3 months, that's not a good fit. And then just budget. If your budget's $1,000 a month, regardless of us or any company, you're going to be limited as to what you can do with that compared to $10,000 or $20,000 a month. So that's just kind of some rough frameworks that we've used.
So you're based in Nebraska, but you take customers all across the United States, correct?
We do actually. Most of our clients are outside of the region, mostly for the reason of there's, back to your question about startup, there's not a plethora of B2B tech companies in Nebraska, but we definitely have our fair share here. We just, if we limit ourselves by geography, we won't have a very big customer list. So
how do you market your company?
Yeah, we practice what we preach. I think that's one thing that sets us apart from other content agencies or even agencies in general is Fred, day one, I never wanted to be that company that says you should do this, but don't look at us. So we use content, we use outbound strategies, as well as things like this, just building relationships in the industry and helping before selling.
So Ali, let's suppose someone is watching this and they want to start their own company. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I got advice for when I started this company was always. Okay, let's see. How should I put this? Never assume that you've got everything figured out all the time. So even when you start the company, even if you have a good month, that doesn't mean, okay, all of a sudden now we need to go get a new office, or we should invest in this technology, or we should hire 5 employees. Like, you're going to have ebbs and flows. And so build your cushion so that when you're ready to make those big decisions, you actually have that cushion there. So if after you invest, you've got a couple of months that, don't go the way you thought they would, you're not going to go out of business because you've used that cash that comes in as somewhat liquidity. And instead you haven't been somewhat conservative in your approach, especially since we haven't taken any outside investment. So
that's good. Ali, so we're coming to the end of our talk. Can you give us any advice on any subject or anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'd say advice for marketing right now. Again, if you're listening to this right now in our current situation, one of the best things you can do is, revisit what your marketing calendar looks like for the next year. I think people right now are hoping this is a short-term thing, which hopefully it is, but it's certainly going to impact how we communicate with people long-term. So I think people's inboxes are still going to be overflowing. I think we're still going to be inundated with content as we move forward out of this challenge that we're in. So pare down what you're doing to the most essential value and the unique value that you can drive for your customers, and then make sure that you have a way to track that back to your analytics conversation to make sure that you're seeing what's coming from your efforts.
Ali, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. And remember to be great every day. All right, I'll stop recording.